תודה רבה, דוקטור קאץ. קהל נכבד, המרצה האורח שלנו בטקס זה הוא השגריר החדש של ארצות הברית בישראל, דניאל שפירו. מהרגע שנחת בישראל לפני כ3 חודשים בסך הכל, הוא נעשה לאחד השגרירים הבולטים והמדוברים ביותר שהיו אי פעם בארץ, מכל מדינה שהיא, לא רק מהידידה הגדולה שלנו, ארצות הברית. השגריר ביסס את מעמדו כאחד מיועציו הבכירים של הנשיא אובמה בענייני המזרח התיכון, והוא מלווה את הנשיא אובמה מאז המרוץ שלו לנשיאות. בתפקידים אלו הוא יצר קשר אמיץ עם ראשי ארגון בני ברית בוושינגטון ועם יתר הארגונים היהודים. בתפקידיו הקודמים כיועץ בכיר בקונגרס האמריקני השתתף השגריר שפירו ביוזמות חקיקה רבות שבאו לחזק את יחסי ישראל ארצות הברית ולתרום לחוסנה ולביטחונה של מדינת ישראל. יש לו גם מחויבות אישית עמוקה ובלתי מסויגת למורשת היהודית שלו ולקשר עם מדינת ישראל. זה בא לידי ביטוי בריאיון שהעניק לאחרונה, ובו אמר, אני חושב שזה דורש טיפול וטיפוח תמידיים. זה לא מובן מאליו שיהודים בארצות הברית וגם אמריקנים באופן כללי ירגישו מחוברים לישראל, אלא אם נעבוד כל הזמן על בניית הקשרים. מארגני הפרס מאמצים את הדברים האלה מילה במילה. אף שהוא יכול היה לשאת את הדברים שלו הרצאה בעברית, ואני גם ראיתי בזווית העין שהוא רושם בעברית, החלטנו שבשנה הראשונה לכהונתו נקל עליו, נאפשר לו לשאת את הדברים הפעם באנגלית. So without further ado, I give you the Ambassador of the United States to Israel, His Excellency Mr. Daniel Shapiro.
תודה רבה. הנאום שלי כן יהיה באנגלית, אבל אני אגיד כמה מילים בעברית בתחילה. ערב טוב לכולם. אני רוצה קודם כל להודות לעורך דין דוקטור חיים כץ ולאלן שניידר שהזמינו אותי להשתתף בטקס הזה. אני גם רוצה לברך את זוכי הפרסים, במבי שלג, בני אליאס ונוח קליגר, על הפרסים שלכם ועל ההשגות שלכם בתקשורת. אתם באמת נותנים לנו דוגמאות מדהימות של עיתונאות עצמאית, שכל כך חשובה בחיי חברה דמוקרטית. אז כל הכבוד לכם. וגם לפני הנאום הרשמי, אינני יכול לנאום בלי לומר כמה מילים על המצב בדרום. מחשבותינו צריכות להיות עם תושבי אשקלון ואשדוד ויישובים אחרים לדרום. ותפילתנו צריכות להיות עם המשפחה השכולה, משפחת עמי, שאיבדה את בן משפחה שלהם, משה. אנחנו שולחים לכם תנחומים. ברגע כזה חשוב לחזור על עקרונות שלנו. ארצות הברית מגנה את התקפות טרור האלו מעזה. אין תירוץ לשלוח טילים על ראשי אזרחים חפים. ארצות הברית תומכת בזכותה של מדינת ישראל להגן על עצמיה ועל אזרחיה, ונעמוד ביחד, צד אל צד, כבעלי ברית, במאבק נגד טרור מכל מקור. I'll switch to English now. It's a pleasure to attend this gathering, not only because of the extraordinary honorees who we honor tonight, but also because of this organization, B'nai Brit. B'nai Brit has a very long relationship with the Department of State in the United States. It dates back all the way to 1870, when in response to rising anti-Semitism in Ottoman-controlled Romania, B'nai Brit successfully convinced then-President Ulysses S. Grant to establish the United States' first diplomatic presence in Bucharest. President Grant appointed B'nai Brit President Benjamin Peixoto as our first consul in Bucharest, with a letter stating that Peixoto has undertaken the duties of his present office for the benefit of the people he represents who are laboring under severe oppression. B'nai B'rith has also been a pioneer in the world of international aid, being one of the first organizations to raise money to fight cholera outbreak in 1868 in what was then Ottoman Palestine. Since that time, B'nai B'rith has come to serve as one of the global voices of the Jewish community and the most widely known Jewish humanitarian, human rights, and advocacy organization in the world. I've been proud to work closely with B'nai B'rith in Washington and consider myself a partner in its important work of Klal Yisrael. I commend you, all of you who support this organization or work for this organization, for your leadership in the fight against anti-Semitism and against anti-Israel bias, your work to ensure the dignity of our community's older citizens, and your help for communities in crisis wherever they can be found. In many ways, those goals of B'nai B'rith parallel those of the United States Embassy here in Israel. President Obama's approach toward Israel is grounded in his firm conviction that it is a profoundly important interest of the United States for Israel to succeed and thrive into the future as a strong, secure, Jewish, democratic state here in the historic homeland of the Jewish people. We have no better ally than Israel in the Middle East, and we want to ensure that the qualities that have made Israel such a strong ally and partner continue to define Israel in the future, so that partnership can continue to flourish. Our stake in Israel's future flows without a doubt from the common interests of two allies facing common threats, from terrorists, from Iran, and from instability in a sensitive part of the world, as well as from the tremendous investment we have made in each other through unparalleled security cooperation. But as President Obama has said, the U.S.-Israel relationship is more than a strategic alliance. It is a moral bond between the people of two democracies. Israel and the United States share a common narrative. Americans of all backgrounds look at Israel and see a country much like their own, which struggled to survive from its very founding, and not only succeeded against all odds, but thrived. America and Israel are unique in the world, in that our founding fathers and mothers made a conscious decision to leave their place of birth in search of a better future, and, in the case of Israel, to rebuild the ancient homeland of their ancestors. They wanted to be free from fear and to be part of something greater than themselves. Both our countries were established on the very premise that all people have a right to live and to thrive and to determine their own futures. These are unique bonds between Israel and America, and they form the foundation of our special relationship. Because of our friendship and our trust in one another, we work to support each other and look out for each other's interests. When 6 Israelis were trapped inside the Israeli embassy in Cairo with their lives in danger, President Obama personally intervened with the Egyptian government, requesting protection and reminding Egypt of its international obligations. Prime Minister Netanyahu thanked him, saying, "We owe President Obama a special measure of gratitude." Similarly, Israel and the U.S. worked together in recent weeks for the return of our dual national, Ilan Grappel, who is now home safely with his family in New York. Our commitment to Israel's future is comprehensive and unwavering. With broad bipartisan support, the United States tests every policy decision regarding the Middle East on whether it is consistent with the goal of ensuring Israel's future as a secure Jewish democratic state. That is a commitment that runs as a common thread through our entire government, even while different departments approach the U.S.-Israel relationship and regional challenges from a variety of perspectives. This test helps explain our extraordinary security cooperation, our stand against the delegitimization of Israel, our efforts on Iran to combat our determination to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, our response to the Arab Spring, and our commitment to achieve Israeli-Palestinian peace. As the unprecedented changes ongoing in the Arab world continue to unfold, we recognize that these events present both challenges and opportunities. We know the stakes for Israel are high, as they are for the United States. And in a situation where neither of us can control outcomes, we are working closely together to chart a common strategy that maximizes the opportunities and minimizes, while also preparing for, the risks. Israel and the United States have common interests in seeing that wherever the dust settles in the coming months and years, in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Syria, and elsewhere, governments will emerge that are open, transparent, and responsive to the legitimate aspirations of their people, that respect the universal rights of their people, including the rights to freedom of speech, peaceful assembly, and association, as well as the rights of women and minorities, that uphold democratic principles and support tolerance and coexistence, and that live up to their international obligations and are committed to peace in the region. And as we work to promote those outcomes, we are also working to help Israel maintain its strength and security for the long haul and to respond to the very real threats it faces. In his speech at the United Nations, it was important for President Obama to remind the world that the United States' commitment to Israel's security, is unshakable. We see evidence of this commitment in the unprecedented level of military and security cooperation under this administration. Our security cooperation responds to the very real threats that Israel faces, from Iran's drive to acquire nuclear weapons, Ahmadinejad's repeated threats to destroy Israel, Hezbollah's amassing of thousands of missiles, and the smuggling of weapons into Gaza by Hamas and other terrorist organizations for use against Israeli civilians. These threats present a real risk to Israel's and to America's security. The United States is acting to ensure that Israel is able to defend itself by itself, that Israel is able to maintain its qualitative military edge and ability to deter, counter, and defeat credible military threats from any individual state, coalition of states, or non-state actor. This has been a top priority for President Obama since the first days of his administration, and I'm proud to say that our security relationship with Israel is broader, deeper, and more intense than ever before. In 2011, we have sent the largest ever security assistance package to Israel, over $3 billion, despite significant budgetary challenges for the United States. In addition to our annual military assistance, the U.S. and Israel share security dialogues and exchanges in political, military, and intelligence channels, and discuss regional security matters and counterterrorism, sharing information and conducting joint training that can and does save lives. We also continue to work with Israel to develop and deploy missile defense technologies. We have worked together for years on the Arrow system against long-range missiles. We are working to develop the David Sling system against medium-range missiles. And as you all know, earlier this year, Congress responded to the request of President Obama and provided over $200 million to accelerate production and deployment of the Iron Dome short-range missile system, a project to which I devoted particular attention during my tenure at the White House. When President Obama visited Sderot in 2008, he saw firsthand the impact of rockets in southern communities. At that time, he pledged that as president, he would do everything in his power to ensure Israel's security and help defend its citizens from terrorist attacks. Last month, I visited an Iron Dome battery deployed in the south, and it is a remarkable testament to Israeli ingenuity in the face of persistent threats. We are proud to be Israel's partner in developing and deploying this technology, which, pure and simple, saves lives. It is one of the best examples of what Defense Minister Barak meant when he said recently, "I can hardly remember a better period of American support and cooperation and similar strategic understanding of events around us than we have right now." Our commitment to Israel's future as a secure, Jewish, democratic state extends to the world of diplomacy. An essential element for securing Israel's future as both a Jewish and a democratic state is resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with the establishment of two states for two peoples. Several successive Israeli prime ministers, including Prime Minister Netanyahu in his Bar Ilan speech, have made clear their commitment to this goal, and we want to help them achieve it. An agreement must end the conflict and all claims, ensure Israel's security, and provide for the Palestinians' legitimate aspirations for self-determination in a viable state of their own. That is in Israel's interests, the Palestinians' interests, and the United States' interests. While we have all had less success than we would have liked in making progress toward this outcome. Our goal remains the same and as urgent as ever. At present, we are opposing the Palestinian approach to internationalize the resolution of the conflict by applying to the United States Security Council for membership at the UN and by their applications to other UN organizations. The United States has been crystal clear that the core issues of the conflict can only be resolved through direct negotiations. The United States continues to oppose the Palestinian path at the UN, and we, along with our quartet partners, have opened a viable path back to direct negotiations without preconditions between Israelis and Palestinians. At the same time, we continue to support assistance that helps build the institutions of a future Palestinian state, including effective security forces and competent, clean governance. The status quo is simply not sustainable, whichever way you look at it. Israel cannot remain secure, Jewish, and democratic in perpetuity without the emergence of a Palestinian state. And a Palestinian state will not emerge without painful and politically difficult decisions by both Israeli and Palestinian leaders. Another component of a secure and stable Israel is a strong civil society, which respects diverse opinions and an independent press. As we sit here tonight to honor these three outstanding journalists, I want to make a few comments about the role of journalism in a democratic state. In order to preserve the democratic values of a state, journalists must be persistent enough to uncover deep-rooted issues, objective enough to portray society the way it actually is, and critical enough to help the nation reflect on itself and its future. Bambi Sheleg, through her magazine, Eretz Acheret, has given a medium to diverse voices, both within Israel and in the diaspora, who want to address the country's challenges through dialogue and in a shared space, rather than through extreme arguments meant to attack more than engage. Her work is proof that moderate people of all backgrounds can find more in common with each other than with extremists from their own community. The films of Meni Elias candidly depict both the triumphs and challenges of diverse groups trying to live together and make sense of their lives in the midst of conflict. Whether chronicling the Ethiopian survivors of the March to Israel or the sometimes successful, sometimes unsuccessful attempts of ordinary Arabs and Jews to live side by side, his films teach us lessons about how people from different backgrounds each bring their own unique perspective to the issues of integration and coexistence. And Noach Klieger, a resistance fighter, a survivor of the Holocaust, and a journalist, has shown us that people of integrity and courage can bring the truth to light, even in the most dire of circumstances and against the most impossible of odds. Drawing on his own compelling personal story, he works to ensure that the memory of the 6 million will never be extinguished, and that future generations will understand the unique evil of the Shoah to help ensure that it can never be repeated. That is truly Avodat Kodesh, and I'm proud to participate in this recognition of your lifetime of work. Well, thank you once again to B'nai Brit, not only for recognizing the work of these outstanding journalists, but for providing a voice and means for people of conscience all over the world to improve the lives of others. May your work continue to inspire others to do what they can in the service of Tikkun Olam for many years to come. Thank you very much.
אנחנו נאפשר 2-3 שאלות, לא יותר, אם אתם רוצים לשאול את כבוד השגריר, בבקשה.
Mr. Ambassador, everybody knows that America is suffering from a global crisis and it may have to be bailed out by China. China doesn't have the same values as America, so what's the solution to the problem?
I'm tempted to plead that I'm not an economist, but let me say this. The economic challenges that the United States is facing, and indeed much of the world is facing, and I think many of your neighbors and trading partners in Europe are facing an equally bedeviling challenge, are deep, are real, and are going to take time to solve, and have taken longer to solve, obviously, than many would have liked. What I think, however, is important for us and myself as a representative of the United States to emphasize is our fundamental strengths. The fundamental strengths of our economy, of our, the ingenuity of our high-tech industries, of our education system, which is the envy of the world, and most of the world tries to come to. These are fundamental strengths that I believe, and I know President Obama believes, will help us ride through these challenges. There are going to be some very difficult choices to be made on reducing the spending of government, on finding ways to increase the revenues of government. But I do have confidence that the United States, which has been through rough periods before and responded and bounced back, will bounce back, will continue to be the world leader politically, militarily, economically. And while I'm not able to give you the precise economic formulas, I think that confidence by itself and the fundamental strengths I mentioned carry us a long way.
Four simple words. What about Jonathan Pollard?
There's not a...
So I feel that a friend of Israel, like you have described, should be aware of that feeling, and we are now in a period, should I say, in the time of releases. First Gilad Shalit, now Jonathan Ripple. Maybe the time has come also to show clemency to Jonathan Pollard, which I believe is so because of his state of health and age and time that he is already in jail. Thank you.
The answer, I won't be able to say much more than I've said previously on this subject. Obviously, I'm aware and have heard of the strong feelings of many people in Israel. Mr. Pollard is serving the sentence he received for the serious crime he committed. And beyond that, I simply don't have any ability to speculate further about his case.
You mentioned America's support for the two-state solution. It's been almost 2 decades since the Oslo agreements have been signed, and they've precipitated all the dangers that the opponents warned of, and none of the benefits the proponents promised. What has to happen for American policymakers to decide to abandon this policy? And if it did happen, what policy alternatives would it pursue in order to maintain their commitment to Israel as a Jewish democracy?
Well, I won't speculate on what it will take to abandon our policy, because it's our policy. It's been our policy for many years. It's also the policy of the Israeli government and has been for more than a decade and a half. It's fundamentally, as I said in my remarks, in the United States' interest that Israel remain a secure Jewish democratic state, our partner and ally, democratic ally in this part of the world. And that necessitates, as Israeli prime ministers, including the current prime minister, have identified the end of this conflict through a two-state solution between Israelis and Palestinians. It certainly involves building institutions of a viable Palestinian state. It certainly involves difficult political choices by Israeli and Palestinian leaders. It certainly involves preparing populations for peace. and certainly in the case of the Palestinians, ending incitement that has made it harder for the Palestinian population to be prepared to live in peace alongside Israel. So that is our policy. We believe it's ultimately in the best interests of the United States, but also of Israelis and Palestinians, and I believe it will remain our policy.